Okay, everyone, now that we've learned a little bit about the different meanings, moods, and effects of color, we're ready to apply that knowledge to our low poly image from last week. We're going to learn how to enhance the range of lightness and darkness in our image first. If you remember from a couple weeks ago when we practiced drawing with value, that means that we'll be enhancing the contrast in our image. Let's go to photopea.com and open our low poly PNG file. I just dragged and dropped my image here to open it, but of course you can also select Open from Computer to find your image and open it then. Now what we're going to do is go down below the Layers panel and find the Adjustments button here. Click it, then click Brightness/Contrast. You've now created a new adjustments layer. Here you can play around with the two sliders in this panel to increase or decrease the contrast and brightness in your image. And so if you want to darken your image, then drag the brightness slider to the left. And sometimes this makes your colors a little more saturated and helps bring more depth into your photo. So if you want a bigger range in values from dark to light, then you can drag your contrast slider to the right. So don't go too crazy with this. Don't completely blow out your image. You still want to have those mid-tone ranges. So don't drag your sliders too far either way. So once you're done adjusting your image, click the Properties panel here to minimize the sliders so you can just see your image. See that? It's a pretty big difference already. Let's keep going. Now we will colorize our image. And to do that, we will add another adjustments layer. So click that same button as before, then click Hue/Saturation. Now, if you drag the hue slider, you can change all the colors in your image at once. So you're changing the entire hue. So now is where you get to drag the slider to change your low poly animal to be the color that you picked to represent you. If your exact shade doesn't show up here, just try to get as close as possible. I chose Chartreuse, which is a really bright greenish yellow that I can't quite exactly get right on this slider, but I chose it because it's my favorite color. It represents enthusiasm, happiness, and growth. When you're done changing the hue, you can minimize the Properties panel again by clicking it here. Now we're going to have to change both of these adjustment layers so that they only affect the low poly image layer. This is going to help us when we add a color background. To do this, you're going to right-click the layer and select Clipping Mask. Do this to both the hue and saturation layer and then to the brightness/contrast layer. Now they're both clipped to the background layer, which means all those adjustments are only going to apply to your low poly animal. Now we're going to create a new layer. Click that first layer that you have up at the top, the Hue/Saturation layer. And so now when we click the New Layer button here, it's going to add that new layer above the Hue/Saturation layer. So now click and drag that new layer so it's underneath the background layer, the one with your low poly animal, like this. Now, making sure that new layer is selected, so it's highlighted a dark gray, head over to the left-hand toolbar and hover over the gradient tool here. Click and hold or right-click, then select the Paint Bucket tool. Now go down to the bottom in the same left-hand toolbar and click the top paint swatch to select it. The color picker will pop up, and now you can choose another color that you want to use as your background. Think again about the different color meanings and associations and how you can create different moods. I wanted to choose a pinkish purple to represent compassion and kindness. So once you choose your color, click OK to close the color picker, then make sure the Paint Bucket tool is still selected, and now you can click anywhere in the image to fill that layer with your selected color. Since we dragged this new layer underneath everything else, and it's on the very bottom, that means the color fill isn't going to cover everything else that you just worked on. It's going to cover everything underneath. So I ended up not liking my color pairing so much, and I wanted to change it. If you feel the same way about your image, then just go ahead and change it. You have your creative license, and you're totally free to make any changes you want to your image. To change your background, you can just click that color swatch again to open the color picker, choose another color, then click anywhere on the layer again. As long as you have that Paint Bucket tool selected, then you're good to go and your color should feel just right. I settled on these bright colors for now, so we're going to go ahead and move on to the eyes. Select the brush tool here on the left-hand toolbar or press B on your keyboard. Now click the color swatch you used before for your bottom color background layer and open the color picker again. Without moving the slider around or anything, select a contrasting color to go against that color background. Since I chose a lighter pinkish color for my background, then a contrasting color would be this dark pinkish purple. So I'm going to choose that. If you have a dark background already, then you're going to want to choose a lighter color that will contrast with it in this same color slider and use that for your eyes. Now that we've chosen our contrasting color and our bottom layer is selected, layer 1, now you can color right where the eyes should be by clicking and holding while moving your mouse to use the brush tool. And again, since this layer is underneath your animal, you aren't coloring on top of it. So if you're coloring and your brush size is way too big or small, you can change the size in the boxes here. And now you're finished. Now go to File, Export As, and then save your low poly spirit animal as a JPG. Remember to drag the quality slider to 100%. If you still aren't liking how your image is looking, for me, I just thought this looked a little jarring, then you can definitely change it. If you want to bring the hue slider up again, find it in your layers panel and double click the box where it says hue. Now you can change your colors to better communicate mood and emotions. I ended up deciding to go for a more analogous look in my low poly image, so don't forget the color schemes we reviewed when we created duotones. We're still using them here. Think about how your colors work together and what kind of feeling you want to get with your low poly spirit animal. I think the pinks create a really warm, loving, comforting image, and I ended up changing the background to purple to draw on meanings of purple being creative and kind of a peaceful color. So I thought this ended up turning out a lot better. So whatever you choose, if you decide to go back and change your image, make sure you resave as a JPG at 100% quality. You're only required to submit one image. Remember the different color schemes and color palettes you can create, and think about how the colors you choose affect the overall mood and meaning of your image. So have fun with it and experiment with different color ranges you can get. It can be a really cool project.